So what I'm doing is I need to replace the power brake booster, which is this thing right here. Okay, and so far I have it halfway done already, but the first thing I did, I've done this before, so I removed the 15 millimeter nuts. There's two of them, and this is 1998 Isuzu Hombre, or it's the same as Chevy S10. So there's two 15 millimeter nuts that attach the master brake cylinder to the unit. Okay, so you pull the master cylinder off. No fluid comes out of it. It's sealed unit, so don't have to worry about that. And just set it back there because mine has flex tubing. So, and I think most of them do on the Isuzu. I'm not sure about the S10. And that leaves the booster by itself. There are 4 screws that go through the firewall, and also 15 millimeter nuts on the other side. There's 4 of them. 3 of them are pretty easy to get out. The 4th one is behind the steering column, which is a bear to get out. But if you now on the inside, you'll be able to see it. See that one nut? I've already taken the nut off, stick it through the firewall, and it's behind the brake lever, right next to the steering column. Hard to see. Steering column is where that rubber boot is, and there's the 2 bolts I already took, 2 nuts I already took out, one on the left hand side, and there's 2 on the right hand side. Okay. Those 2 bolts right there, the nuts I already took off, and then the other one is right there in the bottom. That one's fairly easy also. I use a 15 millimeter long socket wrench on the socket wrench, and that comes off. The last time I put this in, I lost the nut, so I don't have that nut. So, and it works fine without 3. You can do without 4. The 4 of them you can do 3. If they're tight enough, it's not going to go anywhere. Trust me. I don't know. Maybe it needs 4. Maybe that's why I'm doing this again. Also, one of the other tools I used was on a 1/4 inch wrench. I used a 15 millimeter 1/4 inch with a 1/4 inch universal joint to get to the one that I'm having trouble with now, because with the long wrench on there, I couldn't get it out because it was too long, because it backed out against the steering column. So then I had to screw it back in and pull it off. And I didn't have a small 15 millimeter, but I did have a 1/4 inch 15 millimeter, so I used this to try to get at it. And this might actually come in handy for the one that's in back of the steering column. I'm not sure. Okay, so all the bolts are out now on the inside, which means that this thing is just hanging here. So now it's time to pull it out. Pulling it out is kind of difficult because you do have the anti-lock brake system, and that's not flex tubing, so you got to be careful pulling this thing out because there's not a lot of room, but there is enough room to get in and out if you just wheel it around in a certain way. Also remove 6 screws from the anti-lock brake system. One there, one there, go into the frame there, 2 between the fuse box and the unit, and 2 down here, one there, and 1 down in there. It's really difficult to get out. If your AC isn't working, or you don't mind discharging your AC, removing these AC lines would be like the perfect thing. That would make this so simple. Moving the intellect brake system, you can't move it very far because it's hardwired in, but hard piped in, but you can get it enough over, and these lines here do kind of bend a little bit. You don't want to break them. But other than that, it's just a lot of wiggling. Getting these cablings up and more out of the way, because usually they're further down. Just move them up a little bit out of the way, and really that's about it. So now the tricky part, well, it took me a half hour to wiggle that thing out. It just doesn't want to come out. I have to say, it's really not easy. You're trying to get it out one way, the other way. The trick is to keep pulling it backwards, forward, this way, as you're kind of pulling it up. Because if you just try to pull it up, it's just not going to come out, because the screws are going to get stuck on the holes. The threads are going to get stuck on these holes. And one of the problems is that this little hole here, for some reason, at least on this truck, is a smaller diameter hole than the rest of them. See how big that one is? See how little that one is? Big one, big one, big one, tiny one. So maybe if this one was a bigger hole, it would be easier to get in and out. And if I had drill bits with me right now, I would probably go ahead and drill that out, so that would make it easier to go back in. In fact, I may do that. Trying to get this one in, trying to get the old one out was a bear. Trying to get this one in at the right angle is also kind of a bear. I did drill out that one hole. It was a smaller diameter, and hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to squeeze those bolts through there. Ouch, 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 ow. Fuck. Cool. It's in. Oh, that was a fucking bear. Anyway, takes a lot of wiggling. One of the keys is to make sure that these cables are, probably be better to kind of like get something to bungee them up or something so that they're high up, so they're not getting falling behind it. That impedes the flow. Also, I bought mine with my new one with the check valve. This thing's check valve. I just purchased a new check valve, but when you bring the old one back, because this is a rebuild and you got to bring the core back, you bring the core back, they want the original check valve. So I can't give them this one. So when I put this one in, I saved the old one. So I'll put the old one back and I'll use this one as a spare. Not that I think that I'll ever use it. Cause anyway, so right now, I have to put back the bolts from the inside. And sometimes that can be a bear. If you can get one without having somebody hold this up. Last time I had to have somebody hold it up, and it seems to be in its place on its own just fine right now. Okay, so I got it bolted in on the inside, and like I said, I only have three nuts on there because I couldn't find the others. The other one got lost underneath the insulation between the firewall and the inside. So the next step is to get the anti-lock brake thingy bolted down, and I think I lost one of the bolts. I think I lost one of the bolts for the anti-lock brakes. But what really pisses me off is that these bolts, they're just going through something really thin, but I don't understand why they have to be this fucking long. Everything in this truck has got long bolts. I don't understand it. I really don't. It's very bizarre. Very bizarre. All these little bolts here around the anti-lock brake system are all 10 millimeter. Remember, these are all 15 millimeter on the booster and the brake master cylinder. But on this here, they're 10 millimeter. Okay, so I lost a bolt for the anti-lock brake system. I don't know where it is. So they said I lost two, but I found one. At some point, you just have to give up. Look.
This is how you like it, huh, Mike? No kids running around?
Yeah.
Easy, yeah.
working good now. God, I do good work.